Okay, we should be live on YouTube now. Yes, everyone see that little button? Okay. Insert jokes about how many philosophers it takes to run a YouTube live meeting. Okay. All right. The reading of the mission. Appleton Public Montessori seeks to nurture the full potential of every child through the presence of Montessori philosophy in all learning environments, encouraging intrinsic motivation and instilling a love of learning now and for a lifetime. Let's see. Matt, have you taken attendance? Great. Okay. At this point, I'd like to introduce one of our guest attendees, our guest attendee today, Katie Sundstrom. Katie has applied to be the diversity co-chair. And so we invited her today to sit as a guest at the September board meeting. Katie, would you like to introduce yourself, and you have the floor.
Hi, again, my name is Katie Sundstrom, and applying to be the diversity co-chair. Definitely interested in diversity for our kids, for our lives, for all of us, and excited to see what we can do, come up with new ideas and continue different programs we've already been doing at A.P.M. I'm really excited about all that our school stands for and to be a little bit more a part of it. Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you for being here tonight. All right, so we move next to the approval of minutes. I think, if I'm not correct, only the minutes from the August meeting, because we haven't reviewed the September meeting. Is that minutes? Is that correct? Yes, they were not. The September minutes were not reviewed yet. So I see I need to do a vote call for approval of the minutes from the August meeting. Do I have a motion to do this?
I'll make a motion to perform a roll call for approval of the minutes.
Thank you. A second?
I'll second it.
Any discussion on the minutes from the August meeting? Hearing none. Stephanie? Aye. Derek?
Aye.
Matt?
Aye.
Dan?
Aye.
Ashley?
Aye, sorry.
That's okay. Sarah?
Aye.
Michelle?
Aye.
Andrea?
Aye.
Kayla?
Aye.
And Paige?
Aye.
Thank you. I now move to approval of today's agenda. Do I have a motion to approve tonight's agenda?
I will motion.
Thank you. Do I have a second? That was Sarah.
I will second it, Andrea.
Thank you. Do I hear any discussion? Hearing none. Stephanie? Aye. Derek?
Aye.
Matt?
Aye.
Dan?
Aye.
Ashley?
Aye.
Nicole? Oh, I'm sorry. I'm just going down my list. She's absent today. Sarah?
Aye.
Michelle?
Aye.
Andrea?
Aye.
Kayla?
Aye.
And Paige?
Aye.
Thank you so much. Our next item on the agenda is our voting items. So we have first our strategic plan and budget. A little introduction before we move to the vote. Usually we have this vote in September after quite an extensive summer of planning. So I do know many of you contacted me over the week from many committees, letting me know that while you were excited about committee work, it was really difficult to plan what things were going to exactly look like. And steering committee recognizes that. So we recognize that we are passing a strategic plan in a difficult and different year. So we do know that things may have to shift and change, and priorities and events may happen or not happen as the circumstances allow. So I'm going to screen share that strategic plan in case we want to discuss any component of it. And I'll do that. So I would like to, if there's a motion to bring the strategic plan and budget forward, I would, please, somebody make a motion.
I'll motion.
Thank you, Paige. Is there a second?
I will second that.
Thank you, Derek. And now we move to discussion, and feel free to discuss. And I think a large component of this discussion will be maybe started by Dan, if you don't mind, because I think a review of the budget and everyone's budget requests will be important as we move forward. Does that sound good to you? Oh, you're muted, Dan.
You want to let me share my screen and I will walk through the budget?
Yes. Can you, you have sharing privileges, I hope.
It says host disabled participant screen sharing.
I did not mean to do that. Hold on just a second.
You bet.
Dan, you should be able to screen share now.
Perfect. Can you see my screen?
No.
Super.
Now we can.
All right. Okay, so again, with the budget, really, if you go through it, there's, to keep this easier for everybody, this column is what we actually spent in the 2019-2020 school year. This column is what we budgeted for. This is the variance between those two. This is the proposed budget. This is the one you really want to pay attention to. I've got some notes here. I don't know if you guys can read those or not, but I will go through some of them if you have questions. Ultimately, what you're going to notice is that in most instances, last year, we did not spend what we had budgeted for, which was okay because we didn't fundraise what we had anticipated. We were close, but we didn't make what we had hoped for. So our revenues did not meet our spending. I'm sorry, our revenues met our spending, but had we spent what we had projected, we would not have. This year is going to be a little bit different. We recognize that there are some things that are necessities because of this current situation that we find ourselves in, that I don't think anybody thinks is ideal. And in order to support the staff and teachers to make it as Montessori-esque as we can, there are some things that they have been asking for. So on the revenue side, one of the things you should notice is I'm projecting, I think conservatively, that fundraising as a whole will be down from what it was last year. And there's a couple of different things in there. One of them is people have got lots of other craziness going on in their lives. Lots of people are asking for money. And I think there's also going to be more difficulty in some of the revenue items like Harvest Moon. We're not going to raise any money if we don't have a Harvest Moon. Paint a plank. We may get lucky and pull it off and do awesome, but we're conservatively estimating that we won't make as much as we have in the past. So if you have questions about that, let me know. This is also out in the Google Docs. If any of you want to go and pour over it a little bit more detail, if it's easier for you to see. Does anybody have any questions on the revenue side before I move to the expenses? Seeing none, I will move on to the really fun part. So expenses. You'll notice there are some, I'm not going to go into little $100 items here, but there are some big items that I want to go over. One of the things we did was we took staff and para training and we lumped that in with conferences, partly because everything is going to be virtual for them that they're going to in terms of training. And really the conferences expenses are about getting them there, paying the fees, et cetera. So we're lumping that together this year. We can line item it out in the future, but so there is nothing here that's been moved down to regional and national conference. You're going to say, well, why are we spending that much? Well, hopefully the thought process here is, in the past, we would send a representative from each grade level, and they would come back and report. In this case, well, it's virtual, the cost should be less. However, depending on staffing needs and what the school needs, we'll leave that up to Cassie to decide, but we're going to keep that the same dollar amount as we've budgeted in the past. We did not use that last year. It may be extremely important this year that they get the opportunity to go to those, because it's expected there's going to be some opportunities for at the Montessori conferences for people to talk about particularly how they're transitioning to a online virtual model, which is, I think everybody can admit, is harder in the Montessori realm. In addition to that, you have this grouping here, and this is one-time non-annual emergency funding that we have the funds for in terms of dollars saved without touching our endowment, that are have been identified by Cassie and her staff as things that the district isn't going to pay for, but would make their job significantly easier in terms of, not just easier, but effective in terms of teaching our kids, whether they're in the in-person, hybrid, or current state of virtual. And some of those things they're line itemed out here, but the big expenses are some technology support that the district isn't going to do, mainly some Wi-Fi enablers, some additional monitors that are bigger, headphones with mics so they're not getting all sorts of cross sounds, particularly when they're helping the little ones, with reading and stuff. Tripods for recording meetings, asynchronous and synchronous meetings. And then there's money there also for some hover cams, and those aren't familiar, they're really expensive. And they allow the teachers to, for instance, present a book while they're reading it to the kids. The other big expense that's identified as a high need is what we're calling content area development items. And that's, again, it's some actual curriculum kind of stuff that they can use in these different models, across these models. Again, if we can support that, I would recommend we do. There's also, of course, the music, the performing arts piece. It's identified as a medium need because, it's not as high as some of the other items, but it's by far the most expensive piece. But this is to keep in mind that when we presented the plan earlier this summer, we talked about glockenspiels for the younger kids and ukuleles for the E2s. Those obviously have some cost. Thought processes there is when they're at home, they can utilize those. When they're in person, even when we get back to that point, there's still going to be social distancing rules in place, and the protocols recommend that the kids aren't sharing instruments. So we would have those. Another item in here that's high need is the social emotional learning. This is, again, Cassie or the staff can talk to that. I'm not exactly sure what that is, but I'm going to defer to them if they say that's a high need. I'm going to defer to the experts. We've got all of this here. Looks scary because it's a big chunk. It's about 56% of our total budget for the year, the spending. But even with that increase, our total increase for the year is only I can't even read it, it's too small, 9.89%. So what does that mean for us as a group? That means that spending as a whole obviously is up, but these are one-time emergency spending. We do not intend to carry these line items over in the future. We do have enough funds in both our checking and our savings that we don't have to touch the endowment or the general fund. These are as of yesterday. but we will have to dip into it. And we don't have any prohibition against dipping into that in our bylaws. We are a non-for-profit. There is, other than the endowment, there is some argument that says really we ought to be fundraising every year for our needs and spending it all every year. We haven't necessarily been doing that anyway. So this is in some ways a good way to spend down some of that that's outside of the endowment contributions. So again, questions on this, I'm happy to answer the logic, the assumptions behind some of these dollar amounts. But again, ultimately we try to go pretty conservative as compared to the previous 3 years, because we knew we were going to have these larger spends. But we also didn't, when it came to educational support, you'll notice we didn't really want to, with the exception of like the Lawrence rental, that's not going to happen, right? The performing arts outside of this spend is expected to be extremely limited. Again, because there's some, like the showcase is unlikely to happen in person. So how about I stop talking and give folks a moment to ask questions?
Thank you. And because we're in the middle of sharing screens, do know that I can't see all of you at once. So if you don't get called on, please jump in, okay? Matt?
So two things. I think it's important to note also that the ukuleles and glockenspiels are permanent buys, right? Like it's not like they get tossed out at the end of this year. So those become things that we can carry on through multiple years. And then I also have a question we had talked about a little bit at steering, when those instruments needed to be purchased, if there was some that could be later and maybe we could budget differently if we know how our fundraising is going for the year. Have we heard any updates on that point?
Do you mind if I jump in there?
Thanks, Cassie.
Sure. So we were able to send home musical kits to all the students with the pickup. So they will start with those. So if the glockenspiels or the ukuleles need to be pushed off a little bit, Corinna is ready for that. So we have some wiggle room there.
All right, are there any questions on the budget?
So I guess I would have a question with this representing again over 55% of the total budget. Specifically, how do we feel regarding spending this dollar amount for those items? I know that we like to rely on Cassie to come in as an expert, but I think we should have an open dialogue to say, hey, this is a pretty sizable amount. This might be one of the largest amounts that we've tapped into, at least since I've been on the board, let's say into our checking account. So I think some dialogue around that, maybe even specifically, what happens to these items, the monitors, the extenders. I would assume that those would be property of A.P.M. and assumed to be brought in at year end. But also, do we want to be spending this without knowing the future? What if kids are back, at the end of the quarter, back attending class, because we still have school districts surrounding us that are going full time. I think we should have some serious dialogue around that just before approving, though.
Can I mention something too? I'm not sure if this affects the budget as a whole. So facilities, we have not submitted a budget for our year just because the nature of being in facilities and just having this kind of coming up with outdoor education area. I need time to kind of price these sort of things out. And it would help if I had like a contractor sort of on board to sort of help me. So I don't know if that affects any of this. And if we want, I can throw out a big number, but, and maybe we just chip away at some of the things that we kind of have ideas for the outdoor education. But I don't know if this affects, our bottom line as far as the budget for the year.
I'm gonna just piggyback off of Paige there real quick. E&E has not had time to figure out a budget either. And that outdoor education line caught our eye. So we have not submitted our budget either.
So let me just quickly respond to both of those. E&E had a $100 budget last year. They didn't spend any of it. I'm proposing $100 this year. In addition to that, there is a cutout for outdoor education, recognizing that if that can become a reality, there's some monies there. Because we don't know what that's going to cost, I would argue that we have some seed money here, but for outdoor education, I think Steering's, if I'm recalling, I don't know if it was email or conversation, but the idea was that is something we can probably get some pretty easily get some grant money for. Some of these other things are hard to get grant money for, like classroom kind of stuff, because every teacher's asking for it right now. So, that's part of the thought process. I think we can certainly look at those numbers. The other thing here is, Paige, in terms of facilities, outside of the outdoor education piece, the thought process was there very well may be some things that we can do within the scope of the building or the grounds that aren't playground related, that are facilities related, that may help. If the teachers and the staff come to us and say, these are some things we would like in addition to the things that the district is doing to help keep the kids safe, I don't know. Again, we can fudge those numbers around however we want, as the group thinks is reasonable.
So let me jump in for a few things. So this is why the budget is held up at the same time as the strategic plan. So one of the things that the strategic plan does is provide the vision for the board and the school that year. So let's say that, which I know that you've done, Paige. So outdoor education is something that you've written into the strategic plan. It's something that you know is a priority. Although you don't have the money currently line itemed in the budget, because it's in the strategic plan, and if we move the strategic plan forward, when you do come forward with a fully fleshed out budget, it would be in our duty to see if we could meet that budget so that we could meet the vision of our strategic plan, right? So, and it's the same is true with E&E, right? So it's okay to not know your exact budget. It's helpful to know your budget so that you know what you're fundraising and what you need to spend down. But that's why we do the budget along with the strategic plan, because it's really a visionary document and not a banking document, if that makes sense. I'm saying that from a completely non-financial world point of view, but that's how I view it. It's your vision. It's what you hope to accomplish, right? And so this is also what I would say against the one-time large expenditure. More than ever, our vision must be to provide the best education that we can, given the multiple modes of learning that we are going to be required to do. So I would like to hear, I think I agree with Derek that it's important that we hear from Cassie and hear the questions from the board. But I would like to caution us to listen to that expertise. If they're saying that they need it to effectively deliver instruction at this time, then I would err on the side of what they're telling us. that they need. So perhaps Cassie, you could talk about why some of the things like the hover cams would be used in, even if we go back to the hybrid face-to-face model after the first quarter. Perhaps that would be one way to start that discussion.
Sure, thanks. First, I just want to thank Dan for kind of describing it so well, and all these questions. I know it's important because it is a lot of money and we're not actually asking for this. So, you know, we really had to dig deep to think about what we would need. And the technology is hard because, like it's already been mentioned, it seems like what happens when we're done. But going forward, there is a chance that we will have some virtual learning for some students, hybrid learning for some students, and just in general, learning how to use technology in a little bit more efficient and effective way. So I think, you know, these things can be used going forward. But for example, the hover cams are something that each teacher each classroom teacher has, and they use it in their classroom every day, and they were able to continue using them whether they're teaching at school or at home. But we have 3 teachers that don't have one. So our music teacher, our art teacher, and our special ed teacher don't have a hover cam. And that's because right now they've been using kind of the old school projector and screen because they're in the gymnasium or they're just in person. So now we are at a kind of a huge loss that they can't engage with those students without that showing the work that they're working on. So those to us are a very high need and would just help us deliver the instruction virtually so much easier, as well as things like you know, teachers who are struggling with Wi-Fi in their space. That's so frustrating to everyone when people are cutting out, and so an extender is important. The headphones with the mic, that is for very specifically is for our speech and language teacher, so she can really hear and really speak into something that's going to detect those sounds and be good quality sound. So those are some of the things and the reasons why we're looking for the technology. The tripods for recording, especially for our children's house teachers that are trying to record those lessons. I remember, you know, I was trying to record one of my first videos and I was like trying to tape it to my phone to a wall, and you know, it just is going to make their teaching, their life easier so that they're not spending hours. It will be more efficient for them to use a tripod. So that's kind of what we're thinking behind the technology.
Thank you, Cassie. Does anybody have more clarifying questions? Sarah, thank you. Oh, you're still muted?
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
I remember we had kind of mentioned about the monitors. Did we hear back about whether or not some of those were able to come from the district already? I know we had a little bit of discussion on that.
I did check into that. Right now, the district has gently used monitors that they will sell to us for $75 each. So we might be able to find a better deal than that, is what I'm thinking.
I have an ask for our head of our IT department because we had closed a couple of bank locations permanently. I had asked if we would have some extra monitors. So he is checking into that and hopefully will let me know either tomorrow or early next week.
Thank you, Derek. I mean, that's another thing. So the budget does not preclude us having to spend that money, right? So we had this discussion about, you know, these are the needs. We are going to go find them. We will try to do donations and asking the district first before we spend the money. But it's important that we do state the needs up front so that we know what we're looking for.
Cassie, could you speak to, as we specifically look at the COVID costs, if we go back to school, what of these items would continue to be used, and what might just end up being an expense that just sits there?
Sure, that's a great question. Like already mentioned, anything in performing arts can be continued to use. Our content area development items, books, scholastic news wouldn't be used. That's a yearly thing that we do. The outdoor education line for us was to try to support some families, some of our parents who are making take-home backpacks. So that would continue to be something that we could use year after year. Social emotional learning, again, although we have things in our building, this will just add to that, so that can be continued to be used. And actually a way to utilize our paras through social emotional learning. So kind of a little silver lining there, utilizing our paras in even a more academic way, so they'll continue to be able to do that. Our home learning materials, some of that might be more of a consumable, dice, cards, chalk, Play-Doh. I don't know how much of that we would get back. Whiteboards, we should be able to get most of that back. And then the classroom learning material is more consumable, printer, ink, cardstock. The teachers are working on making those 3-part cards. So we're using a lot more ink and a lot more cardstock. So, and then the technology is, some will keep the hover cams. That will be great. That can be used. And then I don't know, the tripods could be reused. I don't know about the rest. The monitors could be brought back in. I don't know if the district would support it, if our technology would support it. And then headphones, keyboard, mice could still be used.
Thank you, Cassie. Other clarifying questions or comments, discussion components?
I just had a question for Cassie. So I was talking to Al Brandt, and I know that they have a Zoom account. So I don't know if they got that through the district or if they had to pay for that separately from their school budget. Do you know?
Yeah, so each administrator gets a Zoom account through the district, but then if you want your teachers to have it, you have to pay a $15 per teacher subscription. So I'm guessing that he used his budget for that. But I don't know absolutely for sure. What I do know is that the district isn't offering it for teachers. It could be through their charter.
I have a quick question for Cassie as well, and that's around the hover cams. So Mary, do a teacher, I know how important those are. I'm under the impression that the district does in fact provide them, and it sounds like they did, but they don't provide them for the special ed, for the specials, is that?
Right, they provided them for each classroom teaching space. So because our performing arts and our music and our creative arts are in the gym, that was not considered a teaching space. And then maybe just trust me on this, but the special ed location is too small of a room to be considered a teaching space. So they weren't providing it there because there isn't a computer, or right now we have the ViewSonic boards, which is like a smart board. The space has to be large enough and conducive for a classroom, and then you get the hover cam to go with it.
Okay, thank you.
Would it be helpful at this point in time if we went to the strategic plan quickly to have that discussion? Dan, if you wouldn't mind stopping your share screen so that I can pull up the strategic plan? Thank you. Okay, let's see if I can pull it up here. Are you seeing it? Probably not.
Not yet.
Not yet.
Now?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Stephanie,
So
do you
again-
mind, do
Oh,
you
go ahead,
mind
Kathy.
blowing it up a little bit for people? Or maybe it's just me?
No, it's really small for everybody, I think.
It's really tiny. Let's see if I can do that. Did it get any bigger? No. This is not my computer.
Stephanie, if you hold down Control and the plus button, it may zoom in on that.
I think it's because I'm not actually, I don't know. It's not doing any of the little tricks that I know to make it bigger. I do apologize. Maybe if I make the whole, nope, that's not going to work either. Did that work?
Yep, it helped.
Okay, hold on. Okay, how about that? Okay. Yeah, in order to make YouTube work, I actually have to get off of my computer and use Daniel's computer as my computer. It's a little strange. Okay, so I'm not going to read all of this because you all had it and have been working on it throughout the couple of weeks. But do know that I see you've already gotten the groundhog problem in there, Paige. Way to go. That's why we like live Google Docs. All right. So, facilities is looking at outdoor education, looking at our space in a different way, dealing with groundhogs. E&E is looking at what extracurriculars are possible right now while we're in full virtual learning. And we'll look at extracurriculars throughout the year. Resources really does have a challenging work this year, but is looking at grants in particular and for that outdoor education component, as we know that would be useful even beyond this year. It would be something that would be of value for the school. Community has already been moving full steam ahead with our buddy program and looking at developing community now and for the future. And then steering is looking at, we have on our plate reviewing the handbook. We've reviewed the bylaws and the charter last year. And looking at the review of the pandemic emergency responses throughout the first quarter and possibly beyond. And let's see, who else am I? Oh, I got to get to diversity. Looking at really utilizing that book bag model that we created and securing guest speakers even in the virtual model throughout the rest through the virtual learning time. Did I get everybody's highlights? If not, please do speak for your committee. So I would just reiterate, right? We know that a lot of things really hang on the circumstances of the structure and the physicality of things. And so we know that the budget and the strategic plan may need to shift. But you can see that each committee has thought about some of the goals that it can have this year to keep our school community thriving. Are there questions? We can move back and forth between the budget and the strategic plan. I also have the budget, so I can toggle back and forth, but do let me know. I apologize. I will. Okay, that's still going. Hold on. Please continue talking without me. I'm going to mute. Okay, it stopped now. Okay. Some sort of alarm has gone off. Okay. Are there questions on the strategic plan or the budget to continue our discussion?
Leah, did you have a question before? I think I saw you raise your hand, and I don't think Stephanie could see you at the time.
It wasn't really a question. It was more of just a comment that I know that especially the PA expense looks really large and some of the teacher asks look really large, but from what I've been seeing from our community, from our parents and comments that I've seen and heard, a lot of those things specifically work to address some concerns that people have had regarding how much performing arts they've been seeing in the past couple of years, and how much there is available for students to have at home. So they're huge asks, but they definitely specifically address a lot of parent concerns that I've seen.
Thank you. And I do apologize for missing your hand. I can only see 7 of you at a time. I keep scrolling through. Any other comments, questions, concerns, suggestions for the plan or the budget? Matt?
I'd like to just suggest, I don't know if there's anybody on the board or anybody watching on YouTube in our community who's great at finding good deals on things that will still work. You know what I mean? Like if there's somebody who can scour, I don't know, eBay, Facebook Marketplace, something, and can save us a bunch of money and still get perfectly functional. I mean, you know, we don't want to go so cheap that it doesn't work, but I feel like we've got to have a way to find some of these items anyway. I don't know where you find like a classroom full of ukuleles, but you know, you can find some monitors used here and there. So maybe just if we can do that before we go plunging through and spending all of the money, I think that'd probably be next steps if you agree.
Yeah, I think that's I mean, that's been our practice. That's been Cassie's practice thus far. I don't think we want used ukuleles, but I don't know about that. So I don't know.
I think the used glockenspiels might be worse. Once they're out of tune, they're horrible.
I know Fiona has a ukulele that once Fiona brought to Corinna, and Corinna said, I can't tune this. So, yeah, but maybe a used monitor to support that would be an appropriate thing. All right. Am I seeing other? Oh, Sarah, did you have your hand up?
Yeah, sorry. I just wanted to add that after the discussion in steering, I did do a little research work, and I have been working to look at grants that we might be eligible for that performing arts piece. I would obviously need to work a little closer with Corinne so that we could make that happen. But I found a few that I think we might be qualified for. Obviously, I don't know when the money would come in quite yet, but it is something that I am actively working on. And if just to throw out, I'm still seeking a co-chair and committee. If anybody is listening on YouTube and wants to help.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you for reminding me. We do still have one board opening. It is co-chair for resources. And as you can see, it's a really important role this year. And Sarah needs some help. So let's give it to her. All right. Do I have any other questions or discussion points that anyone wants to raise, suggestions, comments?
I think when it comes to spending the funds, doing the balancing act between getting it in a timely fashion, but as well as making sure that we've looked at alternative funding sources, I think is going to be critical. Who's going to be, challenged with that task to weigh those? Is that going to be Dan? Is that steering?
So Cassie submits budget request over $5,000 or over 1,000. What? I'm sorry, I'm quoting it wrong. Dan, help me out here. What's the budget request?
Over $1,000.
Thank you. Over $1,000 to steering.
Yeah, and I think we should just be, so Cassie, for those items below that 1,000 that you'll have free reign. If we go ahead and approve, we're gonna, rely on your expertise to then, get it in a timely fashion, at the same time, making sure that it's cost friendly for our community. Also, as I take a look at other items, such as, let's say, that outdoor area, I think of a timeliness of that. I know we haven't submitted really a budget for that, but the nice days are dwindling and we don't have that yet. So, projected, I think what best case scenario is going to be spring, or is this something that can be used during the winter?
So, Cassie, you can speak to this as well, but even during the summer, there is a group of community members, parents, who are experts in outdoor education, and they have been working with Cassie and have a plan that is not as weather dependent as a outdoor space would be. Cassie, would you like to expand on that further?
Sure. First, I just want to say, in true Montessori fashion, we would hope to create an outdoor space that we could use all year long. As we want the kids outside as much as possible, and trying to go on hikes all the time, that it would be part of our goal. But yeah, right now we're working on some backpacks, exploring backpacks that families could check out and kind of take to whatever space the space that would work best for that backpack, so they can explore different trees or leaves or bugs or streams, or there'd be a winter one. So getting that solidified, I think, will help us get some of that outdoor education going, and then we won't have a huge need. I mean, we want the space because that would be something we could use all the time, but I think it will be like a tiered process and a layered process to have all of those things in place. I don't know if that kind of answers your question.
It does. Thank you.
Okay, so I'm looking at the time, and it seems like the questions have been answered that need to be answered at this time. I'm going to go ahead and close discussion and call for the vote. And this is a vote to approve the strategic plan and budget proposed for the 2020-2021 school year. All those in favor, I'm going to do a roll call vote. Stephanie, aye. Derek?
Aye.
Matt?
Aye.
Dan?
Aye.
Ashley?
Aye.
Nicole Walkenfuss?
Aye.
Sarah?
Aye.
Michelle?
Aye.
Andrea?
Aye.
Kayla?
Aye.
And Paige?
Aye.
Motion carries. No abstains. The next voting item is the review criteria for in-person learning and first quarter virtual start. Before bringing this forward, I'll preface it just a little bit. So at the August special meeting, we voted for A.P.M. to go to an all virtual start for the first quarter of the 2020-21 school year. As part of that vote, it was remitted to the steering committee to set up a review criteria to review the process of first quarter virtual start and the criteria for in-person moving learning. So this was a charge to steering, and we've brought this to you today. And I think that's all I need to say for this. I will pull it up in screen share for you today. Do I have a motion to bring this forward?
I make the motion.
Thank you, Derek. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
And now we move to discussion. And I hope to share this Oh, here we go. Okay. So what we're looking at here is this criteria being used to review and move to in-person learning. Our ultimate goal is to provide a Montessori education for all students. This means that A.P.M.A and A.P.M staff do wish to have our students have the option for in-person learning as soon as it is possible at A.P.M. A.P.M must also provide the option for virtual education throughout the year, given the unknown nature of the current pandemic. We are using the following criteria to move to face-to-face learning and review virtual learning. A weekly update on the benchmarks given by the Appleton Area School District. So steering looks at those weekly. The A.P.M capacity for reopen, which is the structure, staff, and resources, as will be proposed in the October board meeting. And we are monitoring specific sets of data on the learning itself, which will include a 2-week parent survey on virtual learning. So we propose to send every 2 weeks on a Friday, a parent survey looking for feedback. And I can share that survey with you. Hopefully you had a chance to review it as a board. And then we will hear as steering a 2-week update on academic and attendance measures by the administrator. So this is our proposal for our reviewing plan. And discussion is open.
For me, the key to this was that we'll continue to rely on Appleton Area School District to provide the benchmarks from a health and safety standard, which again is something that contractually we're obligated to via our charter with Appleton Area School District. But at the same time, allow us the opportunity to assess their plan and how it works for A.P.M. I think is really important, because the previous structure, the hybrid model, presented some challenges with the size of our school, the size of our classroom, and the split that they had. So this still allows us as a board to review those items to see what type of an impact that would make for learning, and even if it's potentially even possible in some scenarios. So I know it's a little bit open-ended maybe for some. I would prefer our kids to get back to school as soon as possible, but I believe that this structure here is going to be the best for the board to allow us that opportunity to assess it.
I have some thoughts, I guess. So I sit on the board at Kaleidoscope as well. And so we talk about this a lot. And anyway, so Mr. Brandt was saying that back in August, our burden rate for Appleton area was maybe like 163 to 180. And they want the burden rate of the community to be between 50 and 100. But as of last week, our burden rate locally is like 414. So we're way, like we have skyrocketed. So, I think that, and he even said realistically that, he doesn't think we'll be back before February. I know that this sounds like, crushing news for some people, but, and I hate to be Debbie Downer, but, unless, as a community, I think we get our together, I think that we're all going to be at home with our kids. So, and because we are a charter school, if we can't make decisions that are any more reckless than the district. So we couldn't suddenly decide we wanted to go back. We have, the district would be the guidelines. But if we as a school feel, okay, well, maybe some of the schools in the district are going back, we could still say, we want to continue with the virtual learning. Another thing he had mentioned is that, like staffing, that's an issue. They don't have substitutes. So if anybody gets sick, they've got no one to pull from. And I would think that even like for the Montessori community, that would be even more trying, because we wouldn't have Montessori trained people to fit in. So anyway, just some thoughts from another school that I'm on. So
Thank you, Paige. I think it might be helpful if I clarify just a few points. And I know we have some folks watching, and so and hopefully you had a chance to look at this, but I think it's important to know what the data is and where it is located. And just a few clarifying points. It is true, we may not go back to any in-person instruction until AASD allows it. If the district would go back to face-to-face instruction, A.P.M. can immediately, with our August vote, enact aspects of the virtual start plan, that orientation model, the outdoor education, the small pod learning that we had proposed in August. And do know that if the district goes back to in-person instruction prior to the quarter end, A.P.M.A. will reconvene to look at that option. But our vote does hold us to that first quarter virtual start. I do want to pull up, I pulled it up here. This is the Appleton Area School District matrix where you can look for yourself, and it is what we look at weekly as well. And this is what Paige is referring to, this burden rate right here. And that's the burden rate of the city of Appleton, and then also the burden and trajectory of the Tri-County area. And you'll see this fully virtual high, hybrid medium, fully in-person low. These markers come from those numbers that Paige just shared, which comes from the Department of Health Services, which you can read the activity and burden levels by region and county. So I just wanted to point out where that data was located and being pulled from. Just to clarify a few of Paige's points. Thank you.
thank you, Stephanie.
I have a question about the survey that we're looking at sending out.
Yes.
When are we looking at beginning to send that out? And would every 2 weeks be feasible, do you feel, for parents to follow up with that kind of a survey on a biweekly measure?
I would hope to send it out on Friday if the board gave us permission to do so, if they approve this plan. I would hope that we would want to collect this data as soon as possible in an ongoing way. I do know that there's, I think I hear in the second follow-up question that it could be a burden to fill out the survey. I can pull up the survey right now. Would that be helpful?
That would be very helpful, yeah.
Okay. Here we go. Is everyone seeing this right now? Okay. So steering went back and forth because at first it only had 3 questions, and that was viewed as too little data. And so we added a few more. Most of them are quantitative, right? We can just get a high-low marker on them. We looked at 3 major realms, which was communication between families and then children and teacher, scheduling, and then engagement in learning. But we did also share here additional concerns, questions, and ideas so that we were doing a continuous feedback loop with our community. None of the domains, is that the right word for it? I don't know. None of the boxes are required answers. So you can fly through it if you wish and don't want to comment.
Perfect. I just was a little curious about that because I know parents are inundated with emails from everywhere with the schools. So thank you.
Yes, this is our worry too, but we also know that parents and should, parents want to, and they should be able to quickly provide ongoing feedback to the board.
Agreed. Agreed.
Sarah?
Do you mind scrolling down, Stephanie, on the survey, just a smidge? The 2 circles where it says, I need more structured activities, or I need less. Are those also optional? Because I don't see an option for I have the right amount of structured activities for my children.
Oh, good point.
Just in case.
We want the I am satisfied line, right? Okay. Thank you. And this is a blank survey that I pre-filled just so that we would have a model of what it looked like. I just randomly threw in stuff there. So thank you for catching that.
I noticed there's nothing that says if you are not highly satisfied, please contact. I'm kidding.
Yes. Any other questions about I'm going to pull back the face-to-face plan for everyone. I did hear from our education, our staff and our administrator, and a few board members that it would be helpful to put in the language. This would be an amendment. So I would make a proposal for an amendment. And it would be that there would be a 2-week transitional period for staff and families to accommodate to any new schooling schedules and structures. We have a lot of kiddos that are in very different learning structures right now. And the thought would be that to push them, like to have just no transitional time would be not developmentally appropriate. And then also the staff recognize that turning the school over will take time, and it's best to do it in a structured and intentional way. So I would propose that amendment. Would you be okay if I wrote it in here for you to look at? I'm seeing some head nods. Okay. You think I can spell transitional period, but I can't spell period. All right.
I'm a terrible typist. You're brave to be typing in front of people, Stephanie.
I have to tell you, my hands are shaking. Like I type all day long, but like that was really nerve-wracking.
I'm terrible. You did a good job.
Could we, I don't know if discussion's open on the amendment, but if it is.
Well, that's right now it would be that I'm proposing an amendment. Is there a second for discussion of that amendment?
Yeah, I'll second it because I want to discuss it.
Thank you, Dan. Now the amendment is open for discussion.
May I discuss?
Yes, you may. Yes, thank you.
So can we flesh that out a little bit? I mean, it's a little bit vague to me. I definitely, if the teachers and families feel like this is something they need, I'm all for supporting that, particularly if it means that the kids and the staff are able to transition into more efficient model of teaching more quickly by, having this leeway. But what does that mean? Does that mean we're going to, what's the vision? Like, are we going to be bringing in different grade levels at different times in that 2 weeks? Are we going to be doing it where it'll be, let's say we all go in person and we make the determination at that time that we can. Are we bringing in, how are we doing that? Are we staggering it? Are we saying, in those 2 weeks, families have the flexibility to do a hybrid model? They have the flexibility to continue to choose virtual. How much leeway are we giving families and staff in that 2 weeks? And what does that look like?
Well, Dan, since I proposed the amendment, I'm comfortable speaking to that. I know it could sound vague, but I actually believe that this is something that I would ask the staff and educators to put in their October plan. So it would be, it is vague intentionally so that we do that with feedback and input from families and staff well. But it provides us the knowledge that we recognize that families, I will speak from my own experience. I'm not the one who brought this up, another person did, but if I told Emmy right now that she was going back to school, I think it would take me about 3 days to get her there. So she's 5 and she's very difficult to move from another, like this is the plan. This is what we've been doing. And I would appreciate some flexibility on the part of helping my 5-year-old move back to school now that if it is a possibility. And I have that thought about my other child as well. So.
Is virtual learning a potential for the remainder of the school year for those who would prefer to stay virtual?
Cassie?
Yes, so because the district plan that came out did not include a Montessori option that was virtual, with the amount of feedback that we received about families not feeling comfortable in school and wanting the virtual piece, we are right now learning how to do virtual teaching so that we can offer that option for the rest of the year if families desire it.
So then my question is, you will have 2 camps, those who want to stay home and those that want to bring their child back. I would assume those are the only possibilities that I can think of. If we're giving those who choose to stay home that option throughout this entire school year, is there, I guess, what would be the rationale to put in a buffer for that 2 weeks for those who would want to come back right away?
I think without having the plan complete, the buffer is to accommodate both ends. Students who are ready right away, but not force people to come until they're ready. Also allow us to do some of that orientation, some of the outdoor pods, some of the kind of restart the way we typically restart. You know, Children's House takes four days, and correct me if I'm wrong, Ashley, you know, more than a week to slowly bring their children into school to get them acclimated and relationship build. And so the buffer kind of is there to accommodate all the needs, but is not there to put up barriers for people who are ready or for our most needy children who need to get back as soon as possible.
I just see some potential risks out there where, you know, right now all of AASD is virtual. And I can think of some families that have older siblings that right now can be at home with their younger sibling, and it's not much of a big deal. However, if they're back at school, you know, I think it just presents additional challenges for our students, where, you know, they might have the older kids that get to go back to school, but yet the younger ones, you know, that are in elementary school at A.P.M., you know, don't. We're just putting, I think, potentially more stress on families.
Yeah, I really appreciate that feedback, and I think we'll just consider that in our planning. Also encourage all families to add that to any of the board surveys as we get to that piece. So thank you, Derek.
So I have one question also about that. So if we move into a tier 2 where we've got that hybrid learning, is the 5th and 6th grade split still enforced if we move to that second one? So where, you know, 4th grade and under would be full-time, with the option of some of those kids to be home, and then we've got that 5th and 6th grade. Is that still in action?
Yes, right now, if the district would go back and be with the restrictions that they've put in place, the 5, 6 would be at the hybrid. But that's right now where the district's at. So we could not do, like we've said, a less safe option, which would mean have our 5th and 6th graders there more often than 2 days a week.
Okay, thank you.
And I know us as a steering committee have discussed the challenges with that because the fourth grade graders would be, there 5 days a week, and then you would have both A's and B's from fifth and sixth that would have exposure to those fourth graders as well. So that's why we wanted to put in that the structure to accommodate for the structure, staffing, resources, because that in and of itself is going to be a challenge for us if they go back to that hybrid model.
Would it be possible for the board to keep fourth grade virtual and just do third and under?
So Tia, I think that's a really important question. And I'm going to say that what we need right now is to structure the conversation just for our review plan. And one of the reasons why is that we need to have this conversation. So when we need to have the time to have it, which is why it's on our October meeting, so that we can take the next month to hear from the community and the education, the teachers and our administrator on these structural aspects that are concerning. So what we're really looking at today is that letter B that you see there, which is that we need to look at what our capacity for reopening looks like and have that plan fleshed out. And that's why we're pushing that to the October meeting. So I appreciate the question. I just want to make sure that we look at the review process first.
Absolutely, thank you.
Stephanie?
Yeah, I can't see who's talking, sorry.
It's Michelle.
Thank you.
So the proposed C that you put in, I just have a question about the language about that. When I read it as there will be a 2-week transitional period, is that to be interpreted as it's 2 weeks period, or that's 2 weeks flexible depending on what's being assessed at that time, or it's just kind of semantics thing for me that I want to make sure that I'm clear on.
But I think it's right. I think you're right to point that out. I think that's what Derek's hearing too. You're hearing a thou shall not barrier in the language. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yes.
Sure.
Okay.
So could it be a maximum of 2 weeks based on staff needs, or whatever is the main driver there that will indicate how long we need to go?
Does anybody have an amendment to the language that they can propose?
A 1 to 2 week transitional period? Is that, or do people not even want 1 week?
Can you use a word like could utilize so that it is there as an option?
So I'm not sure if Cassie can submit an amendment. I'm beyond my parliamentarian knowledge at this point. So I'm going to suggest if any of those sound appealing to you, you could bring them up as an amendment if you were on the board and not an administrator.
I mean, I guess I would propose the language to be a maximum of a 2-week transitional period.
Or potential 2-week transitional period?
Mm-hmm.
So I hear an amendment on the table to amend the amendment to read as I lost it. What is it? I'm sorry. I started typing and got scared of typing in front of people.
I think, Jared, did you say a potential of? Is that?
I did.
Okay. I mean, that's. I think that implies some flexibility in there.
Any that's the motion. Is there a second to the amendment of the amendment? This gets fun, doesn't it? No, you don't like semantics? Okay. Do I hear a second for that amendment?
I'll second.
Thank you, Paige. It's up for discussion. Nobody wants to discuss this? No, nobody wants to discuss this. Okay. So what this would be is if what we do is we vote on the amendment language, and then we would move back to our discussion, and then we would vote on the criteria being used to review to move to in-person learning. Is that clear as mud?
It is. Can I ask just a quick clarifying question?
Yep, we're in discussion.
Parliamentary, yeah.
Yeah.
Are we allowed per our bylaws to ask just for a call for unanimous consent? And if anyone objects, they can, or do we have to roll call all the way through each of these?
I think we can do a call for unanimous consent for the amendment.
On the amendment? Then I would, if you'll do that, I will certainly make a motion for unanimous consent on the amendment.
Technically, Matt serves as the parliamentarian, so, but if he's not objecting, so I'll just say it's cool. Yeah. All right. Is there a call for unanimous consent on this amendment to the amendment? Or yeah, this language?
Yes, I call for unanimous consent. Then the question is there any objection?
Is there any objection? Thank you.
Seeing none, it would pass.
Okay, seeing none, that passes. So now the language is, there's a point C in there. And now we're back to the original discussion of the criteria being used to review. Is there further discussion on these points? I'm scrolling through all of you. I'm going to stop screen sharing if that's okay for just a second so I can see everyone. Okay. So I'm hearing no need for discussion. So we can close the discussion and move to the vote. Okay. I will do a roll call for the vote. So should I screen, do you need that screen shared again? Or are you good with the voting now? You're good? Okay. Stephanie, aye. Derek?
Aye.
Matt?
Aye.
Dan?
Aye.
Ashley?
Aye.
Nicole Walkenfuss?
Aye.
Sarah?
Aye.
Michelle?
Aye.
Andrea?
Aye.
Kayla?
Aye.
Paige?
Aye.
No nays or abstains. So the motion carries for our review criteria. I will send that survey out on Friday. I may send it to you, Sarah, again for another quick editing check for me before we do that. We move to the administrator's report. Cassie.
Thank you, Stephanie. First, I just want to take a moment to thank all of you on the board. I know technically you did sign up for this, but nobody signed up for having to figure out COVID-19 pandemic. And I just appreciate the conversation and you all, your questions, the listening that you've done with parents and kind of digging down. And it's so important. And I just want to remind you how important you are to our students. And this work that you're doing is a direct impact to them. And I just really appreciate it. And so does the staff. So thank you. A couple things I'm going to report out on are first, our 15-minute Q&A session went well, and we'd like to continue those. So another form of feedback for our families. We will get another one out soon and try, our goal will be to do those monthly. Also, as a reminder that teachers are in contact with families weekly and daily. It's another way that our families can get feedback to their teachers specifically about their children and how things are going. So we'll have the board board feedback, which is more of the umbrella or the general outlook, and then that specific feedback to teachers, which will be good to have. Second thing I wanted to bring up, which is important, is our attendance. Attendance looks a little bit different this year, but I think a couple celebration points are that our teachers have been in contact with every single family, and every student has been in attendance. And I had Mrs. Martzel pull the attendance for last year this week. And we had, 21 students with either a tardy or, out for doctor's appointment or something. And I'm happy to say we have no tardies on our attendance list this year. That doesn't mean that, the students have been there all day, but I do think it's an interesting thing to think about. There's been a couple vacations, but otherwise we have 100% attendance, which is pretty amazing to think about. I do want to, I was going to talk about the budget, but I think we already covered that. And I do think it's important to say that right now our staff is working really hard to fulfill the objective of learning how to put virtual learning efficiently and effectively in place. It's not something that they've been trained to do, but I'm very proud of the work they're doing. That doesn't mean that in-person learning is not on our minds. We are also thinking about that, but right now I want to give them the grace and the time to really get a foundation of this virtual learning. And just want to thank you for passing that budget as well, because that will be greatly helpful and appreciated, which again directly impacts the students. So that's what we're here for, and that's been wonderful. Let's see, anything else on my notes? Yes, one more thing. Coming up at the end of this month and into October, we have, we're going to try to do virtual testing with the students. So many of you remember your students taking MAP testing last year. Our district has changed from MAP testing to iReady testing. So just wanted to let you know that after that testing, I'll have more academic data that I can share with you to let you know how that is going. And that's all for me. Thank you.
Cassie, could you give us an update on Picture Day?
There will be Picture Day. We have to schedule it with the company. It will probably be where we'll schedule appointments for students to come in. So Jenny will send out a sign up genius. We have not picked the Picture Day, but there will be Picture Day, because if we don't have Picture Day, we won't have yearbooks. And I think yearbooks are very important. It's a rite of passage for our students. And so we will have Picture Day.
Thank you.
Yep.
Any questions for Cassie? Thank you. Okay, I'm going to go to steering committee reports, which are very quick. Make sure that you fill out the A.P.M.A contact form that came to you from steering. Please do let me know how the board portal and classroom are working for you and families. I heard last night that it may not be allowing some links to be shared through some phone platforms. I can't test every phone platform from my house. So just let me know if there's a problem so that I can, there's a tech man who lives here, so I can ask him, but let me know. Because I don't know if there's a problem if I don't know there's a problem. So do provide feedback if you like using that for your committee, as it is kind of a beta testing year for us. Please let the president, myself, know, and Jenny Martzel know when you are meeting as a committee, so that we can put that on the school calendar, as well as the way that you're using the classroom portal to share that. And then finally, I wanted to clarify the steering recommendation on committee activities during virtual learning. While the district is in full virtual learning mode, our activities must be virtual. And and not held on school grounds with any large groups at any place. If we would choose to hold an event, then we as board members and as a board would hold all liability and risk. And we can't afford that. We can afford some wiggle room in our budget, but we can't afford to take the liability and risk of holding events in person. So please do let me or Cassie know if you have questions about certain activities that you want to do, and if you need clarification on those. Okay, that's all of my updates. Is there a vice president report?
I was just going to say, for those of you watching, maybe not aware, we challenged every committee to go through and do a SWOT analysis, which would stand for strength, weakness, opportunities, and threats. And that'll be completed, and at a later board meeting, we'll take that analysis and move it into a real strategy to come up with ideas to look at our strengths and figure out how we can go ahead and use those strengths to take advantage of some opportunities there. Just with this current pandemic, I think we really needed to think outside of our traditional box. So look for more information to come.
Thank you, Derek. Dan, you probably are done with the budget for tonight, yes?
I am. If anyone has questions, again, the monthly financials will be out tomorrow morning on the drive if you want to go look at them.
Thank you. And we are to committee reports. We went through everyone's strategic plan. So at this point, I would ask if you have an announcement, a call for volunteers, a need for a co-chair, please do share this at this time or any work that you would like the public to know about your committee this year. So community committee.
Yes, I think the announcement that Leah and I have, we discussed kind of some things that we obviously discussed our strategic plan, but we also want to come up with some creative ideas and solutions to kind of keep the things that everybody's used to doing at school. But we're obviously going to be doing this kind of virtual. So we would like to have a public community committee meeting on September 24th at 7:30. We put it on the classroom, but I'll make sure I email Jenny to make sure that gets on the official calendar. But we really want to invite the public, A.P.M. parents to come and discuss with us some ideas, especially when you're thinking of like Harvest Moon, even some online parent chats that we can talk about how to navigate virtual life. Even winter solstice, we have some ideas and we want to run them past parents and we want to make this successful. So please come to the meeting next Thursday.
Thank you, Andrea. And thank you, Andrea and Leah, for all your work on setting up the buddy system for the new families.
Yes.
That was a heavy lift at the very beginning of the year. So
yeah,
thank you.
If anybody needs a buddy, let me know as soon as you can. I will always be willing to hook anybody up, but I do want to let parents or, current families that are on my list to let them go or to keep them on my list. So.
Okay, E&E committee.
So we're looking at doing some virtual options, hopefully with like a virtual jump rope, yoga, Minecraft, running club, things like that. With hopefully some information to come out about that stuff soon.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Facilities. It's all about groundhogs, right?
Yep, that's where we're starting today. So my strategic plan changed as of this morning. So anyway, we'll deal with the groundhogs at some point. Someone thought I was going to blow them up this morning, but no, that's not going to happen.
That's not Montessori.
That's not very Montessori, right? Anyway, yeah, we want to do stuff outside, building outdoor education space. We're definitely going to need volunteers, and Tiana is going to be my volunteer coordinator for that. Thank you, Tiana. So we'll be sending some stuff out, signups, and we'll have meetings and people can get involved. For sure, we do want to do a paint a plank It'll be a take home this year. And, you know, that might be a kind of a good way to kind of get community together. You know, and, you know, maybe we talk as a board. I mean, it was always a fundraiser for us in the past. We would charge $25 a plank. I don't know, you know, I haven't thought of it until now, if that's something we want to maybe just give families, or if we kind of need the fundraising, maybe we can talk about this at another board meeting. But yeah, so I guess that's kind of, you know, there'll be more information to come, but if anybody has ideas on how to deal with groundhogs, we're taking requests. So thank you.
Thank you, Paige and Tia. Resource Committee.
So as I mentioned earlier, we're still seeking a co-chair, and anyone that's willing to volunteer and be on the committee. I was hoping to host a virtual meeting September 7th at 7 p.m. So I, again, will contact Stephanie and Jenny to get that information put out there. Currently working again on just grants. I have a few businesses that I'm planning on putting in requests for donation, as well as some virtual fundraising ideas that I'm currently working on. And that's all I have for today.
It sounds good. Thank you so much. And Diversity, Inclusion, and Access Committee.
Yeah, well, we're kind of looking at continuing what we've been doing the last couple of years and doing what we can virtually. So big priority right now is the book bag project, trying to get those together and accessible to families, especially during this time while we're doing at-home learning. Have some ideas about other resources that we're hoping to share with our community that they can use to enhance their learning at home if they need to. So yeah, we're there, still doing the diversity Did You Know? So watch for them in the newsletters and Facebook pages and whatnot, and that's where we're at.
Okay, and hopefully you've you now have a co-chair, so you're rolling.
Yes, thank you, Katie.
Thank you, Katie. And do the teachers have an update tonight?
I told them they were off duty, but Ashley looks like she has something.
No, well, I was just gonna say, I know for Children's House in general, we're using the transparent classroom and just getting everything switched over there, a lot of lessons and everything. And I feel like it will be a perfect platform to communicate with families and everything through that, and post lessons and all of that. So yeah.
Thank you. I really love transparent classroom. As a Children's House parent, I love it so much. So I'm really glad that we have that. Also, my kids will do things for you if I tell them I'm going to take a photo of it in transparent classroom.
That silence lesson is gold.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you. It's a motivator that I'm just using. I have no idea if it's correct or not, but it's behaviorism at its best.
Yes, no, and thank you guys. Yeah, thanks just for being patient and stuff with all of it, obviously. So yes, thank you.
Could I ask the teachers a question?
Yeah.
Are these the webcams and microphones that you use to instruct our kids with? I'm not being snarky. I'm seriously asking.
Yes.
Okay.
I use just because, yes, it comes with the computer that we were given from school and stuff. So that's what I've been using.
Okay.
I can tell you, Dan, that Ashley sounds a lot louder during the day than she does right now.
Okay. I don't have a child in Children's House, so I don't know, but.
That's why she's being soft now, Dan.
Got it. She's saving it for tomorrow. Fair enough.
Thank you so much. We are at the end of our meeting, and I should have actually called for a vote. I know you really wanted another one to extend the meeting time because we hit our actual bylaws. We went over a little bit, so I do apologize. Thank you for hanging in there. things move a little bit slower on the virtual board meetings. So just as a reminder, the steering committee meeting is at October 5th at 4:45 p.m. The next board meeting is October 15th, 2020 at 7 p.m. It is planned as a working meeting. We do have one vote scheduled, so we may have to think about the logistics of that, because the point of that meeting is supposed to be a way for our public to split into breakout rooms and work together across committees. So steering will come up with some sort of technological wonder to make that happen. And otherwise, I will ask for unanimous consent for adjournment this evening. Do I hear any objections? Hearing, what do I say? Hearing none?
Passes, yep.
Hearing none, it passes. So I'm going to go turn us off on YouTube, and you can all apparate away. It's been a pleasure to see you this evening. Take care, and happy Friday.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.